Time now for the Saturday special. This is AM 1080 KSCO.
Josh Stevens.
Hemsey, Michael Zwerling.
May I ask you a personal question?
Fire away.
Do you know anybody who suffers from erectile, not electile, but erectile dysfunction?
Not at the moment.
Have you ever?
Only after a really long night out.
I see. Who was that person?
Come again?
Who was that person?
That would be myself. After a really long night out.
That's pretty good, Josh Stevens. You're an honest man. Well,
I try.
Okay. So we better just start our program here before we let too much time go by here, you know. Coming this Saturday to your favorite radio station, the KSCO Erection Special. No, not Election Special. It's the Erection Special. KSCO will yet again rise to its reputation of operation on the foreskin of innovation in the radio industry. May I ask you a personal question? Do you suffer from erection problems? Let's face it, many, if not most of us, I mean you, talk radio listeners, being fairly advanced in your years, do have this problem regardless of your gender. Translation, even if you yourself are lacking the body part prone to grow big and hard, chances are you may have an aging partner who suffers in this manner. So his problem becomes your problem, right? KSCO prides itself in being a fountain of information on health and longevity, but for some reason, discussion of this sensitive topic has been, shall we say, flaccid at best. Join us for the KSCO Erection Special, featuring familiar and not so familiar health experts this Saturday, 10 a.m. to 12 noon, right here on Don't Worry, It's Not Your Fault, but why not see if you can fix it radio, FM 104.1 and AM 1080 KSCO.
It must be, it has to be, with that big sound it's gotta be KSCO.
And you can't have the Saturday special without starting it the right way.
Good morning, a brighter day is here. Good morning, may we bring you cheer.
We've got time, we've got tunes, we've got time, tunes, and temperature.
Get up and go, it's today, you know, on KSCO Radio.
Are we happy to be here with you folks today on the first annual, well, it might be the first and last, KSCO Erection Special. It was suggested that we have an election special. We may still do that, but I thought it made more sense to have an erection special because we've never done that before. What do you think? Might as well, right? Yeah.
Good morning. Now stay right here on KSCO Radio.
Okay. I have this friend who went to visit his urologist recently. And I said to the friend, why don't you invite the urologist to be on the radio with us to discuss erection problems? After all, that's what medical doctor urologists do, a large part of their practice. I have a urologist that treated me for back when I was a kidney stone factory. That was about 12 or 13 years ago. I think I've had an operation, a procedure for just about every kind of kidney stone extraction requirement available. Yeah, so I consider myself an expert. And the problem back then was that I didn't drink enough water. I couldn't force myself to drink enough water to be healthful for my kidneys. But somehow my body changed, and now I drink too much water. Now, can you drink too much water? Probably not. The more water you drink, the better.
It's possible, though.
Well, yeah, I know what you're thinking, Josh Stevens. You're thinking about that woman in the listening area of the Sacramento radio station a few years ago, where they ran a contest to see who could drink the most water in a short, very limited amount of time. And that woman was so hell-bent on winning that prize that she died.
Wow.
She drank so much water that she died.
I was thinking more
And the
locally.
the radio station was fined by the FCC, for causing people to behave that way.
Wow. I was thinking locally. There was a guy who had actually supposedly drank too much water in our Santa Cruz City main jail.
Yeah.
And they died, and toxicology report found too much water. So I know real quickly, we normally do a Dave Cave promo, but Dave is out today on a vacation.
Dave has earned a vacation.
And so in lieu of that, we've got another promo. This is coming in from Michael Olson just a moment ago. Stuff the Boot Saturday is today.
Okay.
Parking lot here at your favorite radio station on 2300 Portola Drive in sunny Santa Cruz. Today from 1 to 5 p.m., we're going to be hosting a Stuff the Boot event, and all the proceeds raised will go help out the volunteer firefighters and the firefighter chiefs who helped battle the lightning fire we had here locally. So come on down, folks, today 1 to 5. Drive through Stuff the Boot event. Come check out one of the fire trucks. Come say hi to some of the people who helped make this radio station happen and sell off some of your guilt, as Olson might say.
Great. Okay, so the urologist passed. Was short notice, but he said that he probably wouldn't participate anyhow. It's sort of a sensitive subject still for a lot of people. I don't know why, because there's tons and tons and tons, and has been for years. Maybe not as much these days because it's sort of old hat now. Advertisements in media for erectile dysfunction solutions and things like that. But we've never done a KSCO erection special, so I figured why not do it, right?
Yeah.
So here we are, and the promo said some familiar guests, and those familiar guests are Dr. Wallach and pharmacist Ben Fuchs. They're both on the same show today. Ben can only be with us for an hour or so, and we'll see how the program goes. So, but I did call another man who agreed and was very excited to be on the Saturday Erection Special. And that man is named Larry Zuccolato, and he has a company called Giovanni Medical here in Scotts Valley, which specializes in hormone treatments, like testosterone injections and the various ways of administering testosterone and so forth. You don't see too many ads at the moment because it's political. I think the ads will return in droves here pretty soon after the election, where, you see a man with low energy, and the big voiced announcer comes on and says, if you are a low energy person, perhaps you are suffering from low T or low testosterone. Anyhow, so my good friends, Dr. Wallach and pharmacist Ben, and our KSCO audience knows both of them. I hope they consider them friends as well, will be with us to discuss alternative ways to deal with. I'm sorry, Larry contacted me just about a half hour ago and said, hey, something has come up. I think a family member is ill in the hospital, if I'm not mistaken. They're going to see, so he can't be on the program today, but wishes us the best. So let me introduce our good friend, Dr. Wallach, and I have to bring him up on the board here. Doc. Hi, Doc. Are you there?
I am here. Thank you, and good morning, everybody.
And pharmacist Ben. Ben, pharmacist Ben Fuchs.
Good morning, MC. Good morning, Dr. Wallach, and good morning, everybody out there listening.
Morning.
Oh, good. So, this is a subject. It's a subject that affects so many people, and yet I think I'm sure it's the first time we've tackled the subject on KSCO on any program, let alone the Saturday special. But why not? Right? Why not? Okay. Let's see, Doc. Let me ask you to go into an explanation of what causes erectile dysfunction and why it seems to get worse with age, although I've been reading that in recent years more and more younger men are experiencing the problem.
Okay. Well, first, let me say two things before I answer that question. Are you hearing me okay?
Fine, just fine.
Okay. Number one, we have covered this actually quite a bit some years ago because we didn't refer to it as the erection special. We talked about it as the stud horse formula. Okay? And we talked about it as the stud horse formula because it was so sensitive a subject and we didn't want to offend anybody, so we called it the stud horse formula. And so that's that one thing I want to throw in there. So it's not like we have not talked about it forever. We just had a different code word for it, stud horse formula. And then
that was when Viagra first came out, right? You're a marketing genius, correct. And that's why you named one of your formulas the stud horse formula. And we're talking 25 years ago, right? So
that's correct.
Turn that old horse into a stallion.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, you're turning a gelding into a stallion. Okay, so then we want to talk just briefly about kidney stones. Kidney stones are actually caused by calcium deficiencies, caused by osteoporosis and arthritis, vitamin D3 deficiency, calcium deficiency. What happens is your parathyroid glands get overactive and they'll pull calcium out of your bones to try and raise the blood level of calcium, and they kind of go overboard and they pull too much calcium out of your bones. That's your parathyroid glands, not your thyroid glands, and result in a precipitation of this excess calcium as bladder stones, kidney stones, and so on. And so the reason why you don't have that problem anymore is you're taking the longevity products now. Duh. Okay, so you're getting all the nutrients you need, so your parathyroid glands are able to go to sleep and not pull any calcium out of your bones. So that's you didn't realize that you were solving your kidney stone problem where your urologist could not. Okay? Then when you look at erectile dysfunction, it can be caused by many, many things. It can be caused by low T, low testosterone. It can be caused by vascular problems, not getting enough blood into the organ to actually create the erection. Then you can also have an emotional problem, a lack of emotions. And so we've always come at the problem from 3 or 4 or 5 different directions, not knowing which problem there was. And so we just assumed, okay, we'll just approach all these problems. And we have a very high rate of success in having young couples get pregnancies where they couldn't before, or having a guy who's my age, which, of course, I don't have those problems, but the guys my age, if they're not doing what I do, they will have those problems. So we work from people who are in their 20s all the way to people who are over 108 years old is the oldest guy I've worked with, to get him smiling again. And so we do have formulas to deal with this, but the basic program is twofold. Number one, you have to make sure that all the bad stuff is gone to maximize absorption of the nutrients. Even if you supplement, if you're not absorbing them, you're in trouble. And this results, non-absorption results in older people getting high blood pressure, diabetes, osteoporosis, arthritis, kidney failure, heart disease. They will get liver cirrhosis. They get low thyroid. They get hyperactive parathyroids. They get dementias. They lose their vision. They get ringing in the ears. They get vertigo and balance problems. And their immune system goes down. They're constantly sick all the time with infectious diseases. And so they'll have 8 and 10 and 12 different pre-existing conditions, including erectile issues. And the doctor says, well, you got to expect this, Frank, because, you know, you're 70 years old and, you know, things happen as you get older. Well, that's not true, because all of these things I've just mentioned, that whole string of things I just mentioned, including erectile dysfunction, are all caused by nutritional deficiency diseases. Okay, so two things you need to do. Number one, be able to absorb the nutrition. And so, and I'll give you a quick terrible story. I could give you two terrible stories. Let me give you two terrible stories, and then we can get right to the erectile dysfunction thing. One terrible story, which is kind of related to this, is a guy by the name of Herman Cain, who was the CEO of Godfather's Pizza, 74 years old, kind of a dandy, D-A-N-D-Y, in the world of billionaires, traveled a lot, did a lot of volunteer stuff, and contributed money to all kinds of programs and so forth. And the last day of June of this year, he was tested positive for COVID. And he has, a little bit of wheezing. He was having a little bit of oxygen problems, and he had a fever. So they diagnosed him with COVID, and they put him in a private hospital. They gave him some everyday intravenous antiviral medication. They also gave him some oxygen. And before the end of July, 29 days later, he's dead. Okay, this billionaire is dead. And so 3 days later, they do the autopsy on him, and it was published. And so I was able to read it online. And basically, he died not of a viral lung infection, but he died of all his capillaries, all the small, almost microscopic blood vessels in his body being clogged with red blood cells that were larger than normal, which is a B12 deficiency, okay? He died from lack of oxygen because he couldn't get oxygen through all these plugged blood vessels because he had a deficiency of vitamin B12. Now, I want you to appreciate it. When people have these problems, the doctor doesn't fix the problem, why they're deficient in B12. They have you come into their office once a month. They'll give you a B12 shot. They'll give you an iron shot. And then maybe once every month or two, they'll give you a transfusion so you can get some platelets from somebody else so you don't bleed to death when you shave yourself and you nick yourself and you're bleeding all day. You go through a whole roll of toilet paper trying to keep the blood off your shirt and so forth. And that's because you couldn't absorb the nutrients to make red blood cells and platelets and so forth. And have your bone marrow make white blood cells to kill the viruses, and stem cells make antibodies to kill the viruses. And so his bone marrow was dead. It was just nothing but scar tissue and fat. Couldn't make all his defenses, why he died at age 74. Okay? Well, the second terrible thing I'm going to share with you is a congressman, or was a congressman, Elijah Cummings from Baltimore, Maryland. He was 68 years old. And he'd been a congressman in Baltimore, Maryland for 35 years. Everybody loved him. He was obese. He was 50 pounds overweight. He had blood pressure problems and this, that, and the other. And he also had AFib, atrial fibrillation, which is caused by either one of two things or both of them together, one of which is osteoporosis of the skull, which squeezes the 10th cranial nerve, the vagus nerve, which controls the rate and rhythm of the heart. He also could have had degenerative disc disease, which would make him shrink, and the first four vertebrae in his thorax, his chest, were squeezing the first four thoracic spinal nerves, which control the rate and rhythm of the heart. So he goes into the doctor because he's having this, his heart is pounding in his chest. And he goes and say, look, Congressman Cummings, you have atrial fibrillation. You're going to die of a heart attack here. You're going to get a stroke if we don't do something here. We need to do an ablation. We're going to kill that part of your heart muscle that's running crazy here, and you'll eliminate the possibility of having a stroke. He says, well, we got to do it. So he goes into Johns Hopkins. They take him into the surgery room. They anesthetize him, cut his chest open, take a hot soldering iron and touch his heart to kill that area of the heart, and he dies immediately. They killed him immediately. Now, you have to appreciate, now, the 7-year study came out about the same time and said the number 3 cause of death in American hospitals is medical errors. Okay, and each year in America, now this is Johns Hopkins did the study, and they said medical errors is the number 3 cause of death in American hospitals each year. Each year, medical doctors kill, and that's the words that Johns Hopkins used. Each year, medical doctors kill 251,000 to 440,000 patients in hospitals each year for medical errors. Now, Michael, how many people's businesses could survive if they killed 251,000 to 440,000 customers in their workplace? If you kill 3 people in your workplace, they shut you down, and it's a big hoo-ha on the front page of the newspaper.
Yes.
Okay. So the medical system. Okay. So let me get on with the erectile dysfunction thing here. It's all part of the same story that I just shared with you. Okay. They will give you all kinds of medication. They'll give you all kinds of treatment, and they'll do surgeries and this, that, and the other. When erectile dysfunction is a combination of one or more nutritional deficiencies. Okay? Number 1, do you know what nutrients are necessary for your Sertoli cells to make testosterone in your testicles?
No. Tell us, please.
Okay. Well, your Sertoli cells in your testicles are what makes testosterone. Testosterone doesn't just happen. Your testicles and your Sertoli cells require 90 essential nutrients. The most important one is cholesterol. Cholesterol deficiency causes low testosterone, because testosterone is 95% by weight cholesterol. What drug is on the market that actually purposely, proactively lowers your cholesterol?
Lipitor and other statin drugs.
Statin drugs. Okay. Well, who prescribes statin drugs? Medical doctors. So when a medical doctor prescribes statin drugs, your sex life is doomed before he even, gives you the prescription. Okay? So you got to get rid of all statin drugs. If you have statin drugs, you've been on them for years, what I want you to do is box them up with a beautiful wrapper and ribbon and give them to your doctor with love. Say, look, I'm not going to take these anymore, but I don't want to throw them away. They're too expensive. I'm going to give them to you because I respect you and love you. I want you to take them every day. Okay? And let him take them. The odds are he won't. The odds are he'll throw them in the trash.
No, I disagree. I think they do believe in what they preach. I think that a lot of the doctors are on statin drugs. I believe that's what I believe anyhow, Doc. All due respect, Well,
maybe that's their problem.
Okay. Well, let's get to pharmacist Ben, who is a nutritional pharmacist, and Ben, I've always wanted to ask you if you're a believer in it's sort of a dumb question because you don't believe in any prescription drugs. You believe in prescription drugs as a last resort, not a first resort, yes?
Well, I don't know what you mean by believing in prescription drugs.
Being a smart thing to...
if you have a chronic disease, there's no prescription drug that is going to help you with a chronic disease, period. End of story, full stop, done. They can only cause side effects and toxicities and lead to further problems, which you'll, of course, need other drugs for, other drugs to hide the symptoms of, and that's the key. Drugs deal with symptoms, they don't deal with causes. And if we are, and by the way, when it comes to medical doctors, their job is to take care of symptoms. We attribute a task to them that they're not responsible for. They never purport to be able to take care of causes. They'll tell you there's no cure for this disease. They tell you this all the time. It's not their fault. They're trained to deal with symptoms, to alleviate suffering. So if you have a symptom, that's what they do. So if you're happy having your symptoms taken care of without the cause being dealt with, that's what a doctor does for you. If you want to address the cause, as Doc was alluding to, you're going to have to deal with how the body works, which is nutritionally. The mighty 90 essential nutrients are the menu with which a cell eats from, period. There's no drugs on the menu. The mighty 90 essential nutrients are what cells have evolved to deal with. Now, over the course of time, nutritional deficiencies will show up as inflammatory conditions, for example, as metabolic issues, for example. But at the end of the day, at the bottom line is that the cell is not doing its business because it's not getting what it needs, and what it needs is nutrition, in addition to oxygen. So the nutrients are fundamental, and that's what Doc's been talking about for decades. And by the way, Doc has forgotten more about this stuff than I'll ever know. So props to Doc Wallach. Everything he said is right on. But when you started talking, Michael, you were alluding to a very important feature of disease that we don't address, and that's something called comorbidity. Have you heard that term? It's been in the news.
I've heard the term, yes.
It's been in the news a lot lately. Comorbidity, or co means together, morbidity means diseases, and diseases appear together. So your kidney disease, or your kidney issues, your stones, occur within a constellation of other bodily breakdowns. Diabetes and kidney disease go hand in hand. Diabetes, kidney disease, and diabetes and ED go hand in hand. They're all part of a syndrome of metabolic breakdown that's associated with, as Doc alluded to, circulation, circulatory problems, And secondly, blood sugar problems. And once again, those two go hand in hand, circulatory issues and blood sugar problems. You cannot treat ED without treating the circulatory system. You cannot treat ED without treating the blood sugar system. And you cannot treat ED without addressing testosterone, which, in addition to a production issue, is also affected by the balance of the female hormone estrogen, which is made in body fat, which is also associated with dysglycemia or diabetes. So if you want to cut right to the chase and you want to deal with all of the symptoms, whether it's kidney stones or whether it's ED or whether it's circulatory problems or whether it's cardiovascular health issues, deal with your blood sugar, deal with your circulatory system. And then if you want to throw one more thing into the mix, deal with your testosterone. And there's lots of ways to do it. Blood sugar, to me, dysglycemia. And by the way, diabetes is a diagnosis that's based on arbitrary numbers. They have selected 120 milligrams per deciliter to be the marker for officially calling you a diabetic. You're at 120, and you get to wear a hat that says, I'm a diabetic, and you get to wear a T-shirt that says, I'm a diabetic, and you get to run for the cure or whatever it is, and you get to have insurance rates that are diabetic insurance rates, and you get diabetic drugs. But if you're at 119.9999999, you're not a diabetic. You're perfect. You're fine. You're healthy. And the doctor will say, oh, you're normal. Well, obviously that's silly, because the body starts to manifest the symptoms of dysglycemia, that's a fancy way of saying messed up blood sugar, way before you're officially a diabetic. So when you factor in the idea that all of the leading causes of death, which are, according to the CDC statistics, heart disease, cancer, Alzheimer's disease, strokes, respiratory health issues, and I think there are one or two more, and you factor in the idea that all of these have dysglycemia at their core, you can do a lot of good just by controlling your blood sugar. And MZ, you know how you control your blood sugar? By eating less sugar.
Avoid sugar.
It's as simple as that. Yeah. And also there's wonderful supplements that you can take to support blood sugar. Doc's been talking about the sweeties, and Doc was the first guy I ever heard of talking about the importance of chromium and vanadium. You can throw niacin into the mix, the ultimate niacin. You can throw selenium into the mix as well, and sulfur. In fact, the Healthy Blood Sugar Pack, Healthy Brain and Healthy Blood Sugar Pack is a great way to get all your basic blood sugar nutrients. Also, you were talking about drinking water. Do you know that the word diabetes, you know what diabetes means? It means to pass through, because it's a urinary problem. Glucose pulls pulls water out of the blood. And urination and thick blood and thirst are one of the hallmark signs of diabetes. So obviously you're going to feel thirsty. You're going to be drinking more water. But you were talking about the problems about drinking water. You said how there's no problem with drinking more water. I beg to differ. There is a major problem with drinking a lot of water. Not that it's bad for you to drink a lot of water, but what you got to do is you got to make sure you're using your Beyond Tangy Tangerine, because the more water you drink, the more B vitamins you're going to lose. The more vitamin C you're going to lose. The more electrolytes you're going to lose, because every time you urinate, Michael, you lose these nutrients in your urine, and the more water you drink, the more you're losing these nutrients. And if you're not replacing them with a Beyond Tangy Tangerine, you could run deficient in all these nutrients, and that can cause their own health issues. So the key idea to ED, the way I look at it, is this concept of comorbidity, and not trying to treat the leaves on the tree, not trying to treat the kidney stones and the ED and the body fat and the excessive thirst and whatever else your symptomology is, but to cut to the root and the soil, and that's going to involve blood sugar, which means, to me, it's difficult to do because we eat emotionally, but it really is a simple thing to do, and that's to eat less sugar and to get yourself on a good nutritional supplement program that features blood sugar stabilizing nutrients.
So that you won't even crave the sugars, right?
Yes.
That's the whole idea.
Well, yeah, and also, by the way, we use sugar for energy, obviously. Well, there's another macronutrient that can get used for energy, but it gets used for energy much more slowly, and that's protein. And you'll find that the more protein you're eating, if you get yourself on something like the Fit Shake from Longevity and you start eating eggs and you ingest more proteins, you're going to find that you're craving sugar less, and the less protein you eat, you're going to find the more sugar you want to eat.
Yeah. Okay. We have pharmacist Ben Fuchs and Dr. Joel Wallach on as guests here on the Saturday Erection Special. If any of you feel like you want to contribute a story or ask a question of either Doc or Ben or both, please call us. I want to open the phone lines at 831-479-1080. We know that I actually haven't discussed this with Doc yet, but I know that Ben has to leave at the end of this hour. So There's about 24 minutes left if you want to talk to Pharmacist Ben, and we're just going to sort of play this whole thing by ear. We might cover the topic entirely or sufficiently by the top of the hour, and we might not. It sort of depends on how many calls we have and how many emails. Speaking of emails, I have an email from Andy Carcello, which says BP meds versus ED meds, ? I was on a lot of blood pressure medications. Took me a couple of years to get off it all. Last blood pressure was 122/70. I thank Wallach for that, but I always was worried about how ED meds affected my blood pressure. And that's from Andy Carcello, 64 years old and a stroke survivor. And
well,
it
they tell
says, every month I purchase a starter pack from KSCO. Well, we love you, Andy.
They tell you not to. They tell you not to when you're using Viagra and other ED meds. They tell you not to take or to be careful of sitting in a hot tub. You know why?
Yeah, because it
lowers your blood pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it opens up blood vessels. One of the mechanism of action. By the way, when I left pharmacy school, the holy grail of pharmacy was a drug that would give you an erection. Because up until Viagra came out, I believe in the late 80s or the mid 90s, probably maybe mid to late
95,
90s. 95, right?
Yeah.
Up until Viagra came out, you know how people dealt with AD?
ED.
Or ED. I'm sorry. ED, we would have to compound a drug called papaverine, which was a vasodilator, open up blood vessels, for injection right into the male organ. You'd have to stick that long needle right into the
long needle
organ.
Or short needle.
No,
I understand.
It was not good. It was not good. And the reason papaverine worked is because it was a vasodilator, and that's the mechanism of action of Viagra and Cialis and these erectile dysfunction drugs. They open up the blood vessels. Basically, they improve circulation to that area. But in order to do that, they have to redirect blood flow. And you end up with vasodilation everywhere. And that vasodilation causes the blood pressure to drop. And so the mechanism of action or the relationship between EDs and ED drugs and antihypertensive drugs involves this vasodilatory effect, this vasodilation effect, and it can exacerbate or potentize the effects of your antihypertensive drugs.
Okay, let's go to the phone. We have our first caller, and that would be Nick in Royal Oaks. Nick, you're on with Doc Wallach, Pharmacist Ben, and poor old MZ.
Hey, Nick.
Oh, okay. Thanks. Hi. Maybe we could tackle the topic of dangling and retraction. I think there's a big mix-up in that area. You know, you can't do 100 yards dash dangling. I always thought it was I didn't know they cut off foreskin. I thought it was all pulled back, but I didn't even know about circumcision and
circumcision.
So dangling and retractions. I mean, there's and then there's like being going nummified, and I think there's a swing, isn't there?
Well, you're bringing up topics that I suppose are related.
I'm not sure what he's talking about.
Yeah.
You're nuts. I mean, I thought I was the only one that dangled.
Okay, well.
Why don't you answer that, MZ?
I can't, and I won't ask you either, Doc. So anyhow, but we'll thank Nick for his call because it's a little
too nutty for your...
Yeah, I mean, I don't... anyhow, 479-1080 in area 831. Very, very interesting. I would have expected a ton of phone calls by now. We are getting another one, so we'll see. And I will check the email. Doc Wallach, are you still there?
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay, good. Yeah, what do you think about testosterone replacement therapy? What is your thoughts? Okay. More and more of that is going on, and there are various ways.
Well, you have to ask the question, why do you need testosterone therapy? Because you're not making enough testosterone. So that goes back to my original statement that what you want to do is make your Sertoli cells happy, which make testosterone. So the first thing you have to do is get rid of gluten. No wheat, no barley, no rye, no oats. This could be beer, it could be whiskey, it could be bread, it could be spaghetti, it could be pizza crust, ice cream cones. You have to get rid of gluten. And this is usually the basic no pun intended, the basic root cause of ED is gluten intolerance. Everybody is allergic to gluten. Nobody can eat all the gluten they want to eat forever, okay? What happens is when you're a 3-year-old and you're eating gluten and you get COVID, you're going to get mild common cold-like symptoms for 3 days. Your body temperature will go up a half a degree. You can't even class it as a fever, and you're over with it. When you're 63 years old, 73 years old, or 83 years old, where the ages in which erectile dysfunction is common, when you get the COVID, you're going to get some really terrible, catastrophic complications. You might even die. So what's the difference between a 63-year-old, a 73-year-old, and an 83-year-old, and a 3-year-old? Well, the 63-year-old, the 73-year-old, and the 83-year-old are on gluten for 60, 70, 80 years, whereas the 3-year-old is only on gluten for 3 years. And so he's only got like 0.0005% damage to his intestines, whereas a 63-year-old might have 50% damage, and they've got a butterfly rash on their face, some rosacea, they got some fibromyalgia, and the doctor will diagnose it as lupus. You're starting to get ED and all that kind of stuff. He says, well, that's one of the side effects of lupus. You're going to get some ED, and I can give you, some Viagra and that kind of stuff. But really what's happening is you're not absorbing the nutrients necessary for your Sertoli cells to make testosterone, okay? Because even if you're eating the 90 essential nutrients, if you're eating gluten, you might only be able to absorb 3%.
Yeah.
Okay? And so that's the problem. So the first thing to solve the problem of ED is you got to get rid of gluten out of your life. No fried foods, no processed meats, no oils, no glutens, no wheat, butter, and oats, no sugar. Then you need to take the basic 90, as pharmacist Ben said very eloquently, even your testicles, even your Sertoli cells, even, your penis, your buttocks, your lumbar muscles, and sciatic nerves, everything involved in sex requires all 90 essential nutrients to function properly, maintain themselves, because all cells have a life, and they break down and get injured and need repairing. They die of old age and need replacing. Without these 90 essential nutrients, your bone marrow cannot make white blood cells, red blood cells, platelets, and antibodies. And so, number one, it's kind of like you can do anything you want, but if you're not getting oxygen, you're going to die. Same way here. Without getting rid of gluten, no matter what you take orally, you're not going to be able to absorb it. People say, well, I've been eating gluten all my life. Why am I just having problems now? Well, that's because you've been eating gluten all your life. And it's a drip thing. It doesn't happen like switch on, switch off. You eat gluten today and it screws up your intestines. You might only lose 1/1000th of 1% of your intestines when you eat your pizza today. But if you're eating gluten all 3 meals every day, by the time you're 40, 50 years old, you could have 80% of your intestines dead. By the time you're 65 years old, you got 95% of your intestines dead.
And do they ever regenerate if that happens?
Can they? You give me 90 days, I can regenerate all your intestines.
Okay.
Doc raised a really interesting point about the intestine. When your when your intestine is messed up, when the environment in the intestine is messed up, you're more prone towards something called estrogen dominance. Estrogen dominance is an issue where estrogen builds up. In men, it can feminize men, and in women, it can over-feminize women, leading to endometriosis and fibromyalgia in women, as well as reproductive problems, God forbid, breast cancer and ovarian cancer. And in men, this estrogen dominance issue can be associated with ED and overall feminization. If you throw in excess body fat, which contributes estrogen, you can run into serious problems, not just with erectile dysfunction, but with what I call the Santa Claus effect, where men become less manly. They become fat and jolly and less virile. And this is all linked to what's called dysbiosis, messed up gut bacteria secondary to gluten intolerance and other issues that whack out the intestine, which is why, even though you wouldn't think of it, one of the best things you could do for erectile dysfunction or for all of the manifestations of the Santa Claus effect is get on the nightly essence from Youngevity, the ultimate microbiome. And I don't know, MZ, or if you saw this new product that just came out, the Daily Digest, which is super cool. It's got a bunch of digestive and detoxification supplements all in individual packets. But focusing on the gut, I always talk about focusing on the gut for everything pretty much. But
because everything starts there.
Everything starts in the intestine, and as Doc has pointed out, gluten intolerance is a serious problem. In the case of ED, it could be connected to gluten intolerance and intestinal issues leading to this condition called estrogen dominance.
Oh, my. Okay, so Doc, I asked the question, are you in favor of or against testosterone replacement therapy? And I didn't get a direct answer, but I got an indirect answer that I believe is no, right?
No, so the only time you need testosterone therapy is if you've been castrated and your testicles have been surgically removed, okay? That's the only time you're going to need some testosterone therapy.
Or if you've had the mumps and have had bilateral orchitis with atrophy?
Well, that's crapola.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Because as long as there's circulation there, mumps virus doesn't kill your testicles, okay? You have to appreciate again that mumps virus gets to your lymphatic system, your throat, that kind of stuff. And again, these are people who get the mumps are ones who have a gluten problem. They cannot defend themselves. Same way right now with the COVID-19. When you look at all the countries that have the lowest death rate and infection rate, they're all Asian countries that live on rice. Okay?
That's fascinating. I've heard you say that, yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, let me give you a quick one example. When you look at India, okay, 1.4 billion people, in India, they have 7 million infections and 111,000 deaths, okay? Now, when you look at the United States, we have 217,000 deaths, about double, okay, what India has. And we have 7 million infections, about the same number of infections as India, but we have double the deaths. Okay, why is that? Well, India, when you look at their 1.4 billion people, they have 29 states. And I asked the World Health Organization, is there any one of the 29 states that has the highest rate of COVID infections and deaths? They said, well, the top tier, the top 10 states, the northern 10 states of India, has 95% of the deaths and 86% of the infections of COVID. The lower two-thirds, okay, the population, and the southern two-thirds, 20 of the states and 7 territories of India, has 5% of the deaths and only 14% of the infections. Well, what's going on there? They're the same people. They don't have 14 different races in India. They're all the same people. What's going on? What happened was, in the top tier of India, everybody just eats wheat, nothing but wheat. They have a gluten issue. Everybody in the southern tier, where there's 2/3 of the population, everybody eats rice and sweet potatoes. They don't have a gluten issue. They're absorbing nutrients, and they only have 5% of the infections, even though they have, 2/3 of the population. They only have 5% of the infections and 14% of the, 5% of the deaths and 14% of the infections, whereas the northern tier, which has only 30% of the population, has 95% of the deaths and 86% of the infections because they're living on wheat. Okay? And so you have to appreciate that this is a very dramatic effect when you start talking about consumption of gluten here. This is not a small thing. This is a very, very important part when it comes to erectile dysfunction. So as long as you have your testicles, you want to eat 3 eggs twice a day with soft yolks. Well, my doctor says I can't have cholesterol. Well, fire your doctor. Okay? Cholesterol makes up, let's see here, cholesterol makes up 95% of testosterone weight, 95% of estrogen weight, 71% of your brain weight. And if you're giving up eggs, you're going to get Alzheimer's disease. Okay, now there's always been dementias. Okay, to go back to the Bible days, dementias. There's 12 different dementias. The Alzheimer's disease has only been around for 60 years when they came out with the low cholesterol diet and getting on statin drugs. So I urge you to eat 3 eggs with soft yolks. I have 3 eggs twice a day, okay, with soft yolks. I have soft-boiled eggs with soft yolks, depending on what restaurant, serve what. I get 3 soft poached eggs with soft yolks.
What's the reason for the soft yolks? So the cholesterol in the yolks don't get...
The cholesterol is not damaged.
Yeah.
It doesn't get damaged. Yeah, if you're hard-boiling your eggs, or frying your eggs, you're damaging the cholesterol. Okay? And then, of course, you got to stay away from oils. No oils, no olive oil, coconut oil, margarines, mayonnaise, salad dressing, cooking oils, because they turn into oxidative things, trans fats, heterocyclamines, acrylamides. And heated oils, oxidized oils like salad dressing, sitting on the table of a restaurant all day, are what causes plaque in your arteries. There is no cholesterol in plaque in your arteries. Cholesterol does not cause heart disease. That's all crapola science. It does not exist. Okay? The plaque in your arteries is caused by oils, salad dressings, cooking oils, margarines. Okay? And there's so many dementias. I always treat for all 12 dementias at the same time. And that's why I have the highest rate of success. I take people who are in comas, Michael, for 8 years. They're in a nursing home being fed these liquid oil meals through their G-tube twice a day for 8 years. Yeah, so their G-tube twice a day for 8 years. I put them on the program I just designed and said to you, and in 3 days they get up and go back to work because they thought they'd only been asleep for a night. They didn't know they were in a coma for 8 years. Okay? And that's because of what happens to all your body parts when you give up cholesterol.
All right, let's go back to the phones, 479-1080 if you want to call the program. Let's take our next call now, which will be Bob in Morgan Hill. Hey, Bob, you're on with Doc Wallach and Pharmacist Ben and MZ.
Yeah, thank you very much. Another wonderful program. I just wanted to revisit this aspect of medication. For example, I take the statin, and then I take the blood pressure pill. Okay, fine. And I started switching over to more nutritionally friendly diet, i.e., cut out the rice, cut out the breads, et cetera, and stick to basically more vegetables, especially the greens, and a little more fish and less chicken and meat. So am I running contra on that? Now, let me mention this also, too. Now, while the sexual desire is still there, the inability to be able to get it up is a challenge. And so listening to your program here, it sounds like, taking the statins essentially are blocking the circulation. Am I getting this wrong?
And the antihypertensive isn't helping either.
Say again? I'm sorry?
You said you're on a blood pressure drug?
Yes, that's right.
What are you on?
Oh, I think it's
Chances are it's dropping your blood pressure, and remember your circulation. You got to get blood going into you got to have pressure all over, and so they're both going to be counterproductive if you're trying to get it up. That's for sure.
Okay, so in essence, then, you mentioned about eggs. I've stayed away from eggs. I don't completely. I just minimize very deeply because doctors told me previously, well, this contributes to your cholesterol. But I still eat an egg once in a while, and I still don't take the pills, religiously. I do try to break it off in order to knock down the immunity. So, it becomes a point of confusion on this. So basically, staying with the nutrition or an orientation is probably going to help the body improve overall. And I mentioned the gut in particular as the basis for this because I remember watching a program with Dr. Gendry, I think it is, that talks about the intestine, the food you have, and how the body reacts with each other. Does that sound reasonable?
Well, let me take that one on. When you become primarily a vegetarian, okay, you're eating a lot of grain, wheat, barley, rye, and oats. You drink beer, you're getting wheat, barley, rye, and oats. You're drinking whiskey, you're getting wheat, barley, rye, and oats. You're eating pancakes and noodles and spaghetti, you're eating wheat, barley, rye, and oats. You're eating bread, croutons in your salad, you're getting wheat, barley, rye, and oats. And so this is a problem, this is why people who are vegetarians tend to be crazy. This is why vegetarians don't reproduce very well because they can't make testosterone, they can't ovulate properly. You need cholesterol, which makes up 95% of the weight of estrogen and 95% of the weight of testosterone. 71% of the weight of your brain is all cholesterol. And so when I used to, have a practice, and people would always ask me about being a vegetarian, I said, well, if you become an ovo-lacto-vegetarian, meaning if you eat dairy products and eggs, and then eat vegetables only, no grains, that'll be acceptable. But my doctor says I can't have dairy products because I have kidney stones. Well, your doctor needs to be put in jail because it's not dairy products because of kidney stones. It's the lack of being able to maintain proper minerals in your bones and your blood. And that's because you're eating all these grains and you got gluten issues. You can't absorb minerals. And so the doctors are giving you a lot of misinformation. They, probably get 15 hours of nutritional training in 4 years of medical school and none in pre-med. In fact, Lancet just came out about a week ago. The famous medical journal Lancet, they came out and said that every medical school in the world is doing everything bad because every medical school in the world is teaching all the medical students to be pill pushers, just treating symptoms as opposed to getting down to the root cause of the problem. That's the Lancet. That's the JAMA. That's the Journal of the American Medical Association, the top medical journal in Europe, okay, from London, England. And so you've got to, kind of dig around and look around, and this is why we came up with so many books and CDs and DVDs. You can go, go to drjwallach.com, www.drjwallach.com, all lowercase. And one of the greatest books I think I have done is Epigenetics, The Death of the Genetic Theory of Disease Transmission. And Michael Zwerling actually interviewed Bruce Lipton and I a couple of weeks ago, and that CD should be available here in the next week or so. We're both considered the fathers of the science of epigenetics, the replacement of the science of genetics, which is a false theory. I can eliminate all birth defects if everybody would do just what I say. Get rid of all gluten, take all 90 essential nutrients as a supplement, as pharmacist Ben professes, for at least 6 months before a pregnancy. We will never have another baby with a birth defect. Okay? We can get rid of all the diseases that are said to be genetically transmitted. Okay? Like heart disease and cancer and kidney disease and fibromyalgia and asthma and all that kind of stuff, and Alzheimer's disease. None of them are genetically transmitted diseases. We've got 5 generations in my family with high blood pressure. Well, that's because y'all eat and cook the same way, stupid. Okay? And so you have to do something different if you want a different result. And so it comes down to everything we've been doing since 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Monday, September 4th, 1882, on Pearl Street in New York City in the bluff overlooking construction of the Brooklyn Bridge has been wrong. What we did at that moment was Thomas Edison and his chief technician, Jonathan Leaves, pulled the switch in the first commercial electric generating plant, and we gave up our total mineral supply, which was wood ashes, prior to that, because we didn't use wood stoves and fireplaces anymore to cook. There was no wood ashes to put in our gardens. There was no more wood ashes to put in our bread dough, which are minerals. Wood ashes are minerals, not carbon. And so when we pulled that switch and went to electricity, and nobody said, okay, now we got to supplement with these 90 essential nutrients because we've given up wood ashes. Nobody did that, and we just went to electricity, and we killed the world by giving up wood stoves and not going to supplements when we went to electricity. This is why the ocean is dying, not because of fossil fuels. This is why the reefs are dying, not because of fossil fuels. We've dammed up the rivers for electricity. We've cut off the food supply to the ocean so that the algae in the ocean cannot eat the carbon dioxide in the air. There's 3 times as many plant lives, tonnage of plant lives in the ocean than there is on the dry land.
Gilroy, another just south of the 129 interchange, and another southbound slowdown just north of Prunedale. Taking a look elsewhere, nothing else really to worry about. As for today, looking at our local weather, outside the KSCO studio, it is currently 75 degrees. We're expecting the mid-80s overnight temperatures, back down to the low 50s, sunny skies, mostly clear nights ahead. Time now for the Saturday special. Let's begin hour 2 on AM 1080 KSCO.
Oh, hello, darling. I hate to hang up on you, but I'm sorry, baby, but I have to go. It's time
in the spirit of continued innovation on the part of your favorite radio station, this is the Saturday Erection Special.
I'm sorry, baby, but I really gotta go to KSCO Radio. Bye.
And we have Doc Wallach with us. Pharmacist Ben had to leave, but Doc, I think the alligator got us right when you were on a roll here. So you want to finish up what you were talking, or were you saying, or are you almost done?
Well, yeah, almost done, but thank you. And so, of course, we were talking about getting rid of the gluten out of your life so you can absorb nutrients. And I don't care if you've been diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, diverticulitis, celiac disease, all of those things, appendicitis when you're a kid, all of those things are caused by gluten, okay? And under the microscope, they look exactly alike, just given different names at different locations, okay? And so they're really the same disease. And you start getting all these malabsorptions, and you start getting things like eczema, dermatitis, psoriasis, and rosacea. You get asthma and bronchitis. You get atrial fibrillation, like we were talking about with Congressman Elijah Cummings. You get a gradual loss of vision, and you don't have pressure in your eyes, okay? You don't need drops in your eyes, all right? You don't have cataracts. You don't need an operation. You don't have macular degeneration, but you're just gradually losing vision. That's because your skull is squeezing the second cranial nerve, the optic nerve, okay? And then you get a ringing, that tone in your ear, the tinnitus. That's a squeezing of the auditory branch of the eighth cranial nerve, and you're going to be losing your hearing pretty soon. And then you get vertigo. Used to be called Meniere's disease. We renamed it Wallach's vertigo because it's caused by squeezing of the vestibular branch of the eighth cranial nerve by osteoporosis of the skull. And there's 25 different diseases you can get from osteoporosis of the skull, okay, including atrial fibrillation and blindness and Bell's palsy and trigeminal neuralgia. As people get older, their voice changes. They also get kind of a sciatica. Everybody knows sciatica, the low back stuff, your sciatic nerves in your lumbar area of your lower spine. You get numbness and tingling and burning and pain in your feet and toes and ankles and legs because of the peripheral neuropathies. Well, the same thing happens when your skull gets osteoporosis. It gets bigger. Okay, and squeezes your spinal cord as it's coming out through the foramen magnum, which is the big hole in the back of your skull where the spinal cord comes through. Most people don't realize your spinal cord comes out of the back of your skull, down your neck. And when your skull squeezes that spinal cord, you get what used to be called Erb's palsy, E-R-B' palsy. And we've renamed it Wallach's palsy, named it after me, right? Because Erb said it was a genetic thing. No, it's a nutritional deficiency thing. And let's see here. Then there's also a thing that you get when you have osteoporosis of the skull. Your skull gets thicker, and all these canals that your nerves go through get filled up with bone matrix, which is kind of like tendon-like material. And it used to be called Paget's disease. He was a pathologist back in 1814, and he started doing complete autopsies of people on a regular basis, and he found that a lot of older people, instead of having a normal skull, which is a quarter of an inch thick, they'd be an inch or more thick, inch and a half thick. And they named it after him, and he thought it was a genetic disease. And so we renamed it after me, Wallach's disease, as opposed to Paget's disease, because it's really just osteoporosis of the skull. And your skull gets an inch and a half thick instead of a quarter inch thick, and all these canals that the nerves go through get squeezed, and you wind up with all these problems. Now, the nerves that come out of the spinal cord also contribute to an erection. Okay, it's not just hormones. The nerves have to go to work and do their part, all right? And so you have to make sure you don't have osteoporosis of the skull when you're having erectile dysfunction. And people with osteoporosis of the skull have 25 different diseases, okay, including erectile dysfunction. So this is everything that the doctor says it's not, and it's not anything that the doctor says it is. And that's why it's an ongoing problem, because doctors have missed it by 1,000 miles. Back to you.
Okay, John in Pasadena has has been on hold and has a question for you, so let's take his call. John, you're on, and what's your question for Doc Wallach?
Doc, the number of people that have been taking the Mighty 90 over a period of, say, 2 decades, what does it look like, statistically speaking? How are they doing? Let's say somebody started 20 years ago and they were 50 or 60, now they're 70 or 80. The statistics on their health must be fantastic, right?
Yeah, the statistics on their health is fantastic. Now, you have to appreciate, when you count correctly, I'm 81 and a half years old right now. I've been taking the 90 essential nutrients for 72 years. I've been on a gluten-free diet for 72 years. I don't have any of these pre-existing conditions. I don't have any blood pressure issues. I don't have any diabetes. I don't have any arthritis. I don't have any of the manifestations of osteoporosis. There's over 100 different diseases you get from osteoporosis. Osteoporosis causes more than just brittle bones in 70-year-old women. Okay, a baby can be born with osteoporosis because if the mother doesn't have enough nutrition to give the baby, baby's born with osteoporosis, and it can have Erb's palsy and be paralyzed from the neck down when it's born, okay, and that kind of stuff. And so when I look at the people who've been with me for 30, 40, 50 years, I have women who've been with me in like 20 different states for 30, 40, 50 years taking these products. And my first one, because of osteoporosis, I called Dr. Wallach's Pig Arthritis Farm. It was just 3 products that I could, buy from a grocery store. And before I started making my own products, and I'm doing things for people like we did for Michael Zwerling. See, he didn't make the connection that he's been taking my stuff and he doesn't have any kidney stones anymore. Okay? Well, that's because kidney stones are caused by osteoporosis. You're losing minerals out of your bones, and they precipitate when you get high concentrations of calcium in urine in your bladder, and you get kidney stones, and they get blocked in the tubes and so forth. And so it's one of those things where when you look at these, I'd say 50 women, and I did some, before we got on the Saturday special here, I was kind of a speaker. At the beginning, we had 150 graduates from our school in Baltimore, Maryland, for our business people. And many of them have been with me for 5, 10, 15, 20 years before they said, I better go to school and do this seriously kind of thing. And these people, they don't have any diseases. These 50 women who've been with me, they're 75, 78, 80 years old and more. They don't have any diseases. They don't have any diseases. And if I would put their pictures in a line in front of you, mixed with people, ladies who are 50 and 40 and 30, and I'd say, okay, pick out the women here who are 80 years old. You couldn't do it because they look like the 40-year-old women. And they don't have high blood pressure. They don't have diabetes. They don't have arthritis. They don't have osteoporosis. They don't have kidney failure. They're not on dialysis. They don't have liver cirrhosis. They don't have coronary artery disease. They don't have COPD. They don't have Bell's palsy. They don't have dementia. And I think you're getting my drift. The 90 essential nutrients is an anti-aging thing because your cells in your body don't live forever. They die and they need to be replaced. And if your stem cells in your bone marrow and your stem cells in your kidneys and your liver and your muscles and your heart and your brain and so forth and your eyes don't have what they need to make new cells, you're starting to get degenerative diseases. But if you're getting all the raw materials, when you look at the long-lived cultures on Earth, in the book Immortality and the Seed of Immortality, we picked out the 10 longest-living cultures. Their average age is 165. Our average age is 75. They, on the average, live 90 years longer than we do. Okay? They publish this result every year, and some of them, that's their average. Some of them live to be 175, some live to be 195, some live to be 210. And these governments, they publish this stuff. These are all third world countries. They don't have health insurance. They don't have medical systems, but they do have things that we don't have. They happen to live near glaciers that grind up the walls of the canyons they go through, which has 75 to 80 minerals in them, including all 60 essential minerals. And they drink the water, they cook in the water, they irrigate their gardens with it. They don't have electricity, and they irrigate with these highly mineralized glacial waters. And so they're getting the minerals that way. They still have wood stoves. They're putting wood ashes in their gardens. And because they're getting so many minerals and not eating gluten, they tend to be rice and potato eaters. They don't get gluten. And so that's why we came up with the book, Immortality, and the CD, Immortality, because it goes into these cultures that don't have doctors, don't have health insurance, don't have pharmaceuticals, and yet they live 100 years longer than we do. And it's not genetic, because when they immigrate to first world countries like Europe and us, they die at the same age we do. But when they stay where they originated from, they live to be 150, 160, 170, 180. So I hope that answers the question.
Well, I guess so the actuarial world, the Mighty 90 must start sticking out like a sore thumb, right?
Well, it should, of course. And of course, it's, what should I say? It's one of those things where you take somebody who has, 15, 20 different diseases, and in 90 days we get rid of them. Let's say, I have some pretty spectacular stories. One of which is a guy who was on dialysis for 25 years. The last 10 years, he was on dialysis 6 days a week. He hadn't urinated in 10 years. We put him on our program for kidney failure, which is a Healthy Brain and Heart Pack and our Ultimate Daily Classic tablets for circulation, and got him off of gluten. And in 2 weeks' time, he's urinating. So they dropped his dialysis down to 3 days a week. And in 4 more weeks, he was totally off of dialysis after 25 years of being on dialysis, in the last 10 years not urinating. Because his arteries were plugged. There was nothing wrong with his kidneys. And so we dealt with his diet, got him off of gluten, got him off of fried foods and oils, and got him on the 90, including the Ultimate Daily Classic tablets, which increased the circulation through his plugged arteries of his kidneys and ended his problem. And then we had this one guy, Ray McGregor, who is in North Carolina, who was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, 25 years ago. For 3 years, he was treated with pharmaceuticals for Alzheimer's disease, and he goes into a coma. They put him into a nursing home and feed him, with these canned meal formulas made out of oils and stuff, and IV for hydration for 8 years. Ray McGregor's in a nursing home in a coma for 8 years with, quote, Alzheimer's disease, unquote. And his sister calls me and says, can you help me? They're going to pull the plug on my brother because his brain waves are just about zero now after 8 years on this, on Ensure. That's what I'm looking for. His Ensure is being fed through his G-tube. I said, well, I want you to give him 3 eggs with soft yolks, blend them up into our shake, make the shake with heavy cream instead of water. I want you to take three servings a day of our Healthy Brain and Heart Packs. There'll be 3 of those per month, and 1 serving in each of his 3 meals through his G-tube. Then I want him on the de-stress capsules, 3 of those in each of those meals. I want him to have 3 of our Ultimate Daily Classic tablets in case he has vascular dementia in his breakfast, lunch, and dinner G-tube meal. His Ultimate Niacin Plus, 1 with each meal. I want him to take the synaptives so brain cells can talk to each other, 3 of those with each meal. Then call me every 2 weeks, let me know what's happening. Well, she calls me in 3 days. She is screaming and yelling and moaning. I said, well, and naming her brother's name. I said, well, what happened to her brother Ray? What's happened? I'm saying to myself, oh, my God, he's dead. And she says, well, he got up this morning. I said, it's only been 3 days. She says, yeah, he got up this morning. He thought he was only asleep for 1 day. He goes back to work as a bank officer in the bank, and nobody there knew him because they weren't there 8 years ago when he went into his coma. And they thought he was just a clever crook claiming he was a bank officer so he could rob the bank. And here's a guy who is in a coma and being fed with Ensure through his G-tube 3 times a day for 8 years. And in 3 days of my program, he gets up perfectly normal and goes back to work. We do this thousands of times a month all over the world. And so we are driving these. Go ahead.
So you are having an effect on the actuarial tables. So
absolutely.
So for a typical 60-year-old who is just getting on the program, it's going to take a certain amount of time for their digestive system to get up to speed for the lower intestine, for the villi and all of that.
Okay. Well, let me answer that question because I've done this millions of times. Over the last 50 years, so I know what I'm talking about here. Okay, that's why I have 15 best-selling books. Okay, especially epigenetics and the 2 CDs that coming out with Bruce Lipton pretty quick. But anyway, To answer that question is, I always tell people, give me 90 days. Well, my doctor says I need this surgery. Okay, well, give me 90 days before you do the surgery. So get on the gluten-free diet. No wheat, brown, rye, oats, no fried foods, no oils, none of that. You get on, the supplement program. Okay, and I want you to do this faithfully. Because what happens is, it's not like you're going to get on a gluten-free diet and you're still screwed up, and on the 90th day, suddenly now you begin to get a little bit of benefit. What happens is, the instant you stop gluten, what happens is you start healing. And you're going to start seeing results in 2 weeks. You're going to start seeing results in 2 weeks. I get people say, I've been bald for 40 years. My eyebrows started growing in 2 weeks. And I was on dialysis for 25 years. And in 2 weeks' time, and after I haven't peed in 10 years, I'm urinating again. And so, yeah, if you're doing everything right, you're going to start seeing results very quickly, because your stem cells have been sitting there waiting for years and years and years and years and years, waiting for some raw materials to go to work. And even if you're only getting 1% of those raw materials going through, your stem cells are going to have something to go to work. So I always tell people, look, give me 90 days. I say, don't expect, turn on the light and everything's perfect. But give me 90 days. You should start seeing recognizable symptoms without going to a doctor and having him tell you you're getting better. You should be able to see you're getting better within 90 days. And usually within 2 to 4 weeks, they'll call up and say, just like Ray McGregor's sister, she called up in 3 days, and he'd been in a coma for 8 years. Okay? And just enough was starting to get through that he, I'm sure he wasn't perfectly 100% healthy, but he had enough stuff come through that his brain was working, and he came out of his coma in 3 days that he'd been in for 8 years, because he was able to absorb, because he was not getting gluten anymore.
I'm so happy that we have Doc Wallach in this particular format, because when you call him on his own show, Dead Doctors Don't Lie, or when you call him on his once every monthly or bi-monthly appearances on the George Norrie Coast to Coast show, you have very, very limited time. And I think it's so great that Doc is able to have a format here where he can do a lot more explaining other than just rattling off, what he says that you should take. And when people do what he says, good things happen. Anyhow, I want to thank John in Pasadena. And our next caller is John in Soquel. Hold on just a second, John. We want to figure out here. John in Soquel should be on the air. John?
I'm Don.
Oh,
Soquel.
Don in Soquel. Yeah. Sorry. Okay.
MZ, you used to have a woman, Dawn Motika. She's an MD, but she believes in nutrition. And she has met Dr. Wallach and likes him. Anyway, she will not eat wheat, not because of gluten. She never talks about gluten, but it has something called Roundup, which all wheat is grown in the United States with Roundup, and it's a killer. It's a weed killer. Has something called glyphosate. And when I stopped eating wheat, I've been on 15 years on longevity product, I started losing weight and feeling better. Is that possible? Do you ever mention that? Because it's a terrible, glyphosate is a terrible poison, and it's still sold at Home Depot. So that's a Monsanto product. If I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Doc, you want to comment on that? You want to comment on that, Doc Wallach?
Yeah, well, there's a whole industry where you have organic foods where you don't have to worry about glyphosates. Organic foods, okay? Organic foods are grown and produced without chemical fertilizers and weed killers and all that kind of stuff. You can even get range-fed cattle that don't get grains fed to them, so they're not going to second-handedly get glyphosates in the milk and beef and fat and so forth. The same way with eggs, you get range-fed chickens, okay, and they don't get any grains, okay? They're range-fed, R-A-N-G-E, okay? They just let them run out in the pasture, and they give them minerals, and so there's minerals coming through their eggs and so forth. But the eggs, the only thing I'm really interested in the eggs is the cholesterol. And so get range-fed eggs, get range-fed cattle for milk and meat, and, don't worry about it. Don't, get all your blood pressure up and your whole life is spent talking about glyphosates, okay? Just forget it. And get on with your life and eat organic. And you'll add 25 to 50 healthy years of your life if you add the 90 essential nutrients and stay away from the gluten. You'll add 25, statistically, you'll add a minimum of 25 to 50 years to your life. And you have to appreciate, again, all our trouble started at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Monday, September 4th, 1882 on Pearl Street in New York City, on the bluff overlooking construction of the Brooklyn Bridge. Now, before that, every year, every 5 years, every 10 years, the medical systems and the governments and the medical systems are bragging. Well, people are living longer. There's more health. We're eliminating this disease. It's great. It's great. It's great. It's great. It's great. And then once they pulled the switch on electricity, suddenly now everything went to hell and the earth is falling apart. And we have erectile dysfunction and we have heart disease and we have cancer and we have Alzheimer's disease. We have all this stuff. And it's really all been inflicted upon us by gluten and the lack of instruction to supplement with all 90 essential nutrients. Now, you have to appreciate, Don, that farmers get paid by tons and bushels of what they grow. Farmers do not get paid by the safety of or the nutritional value of what's in the food. They don't get paid by the nutritional value of the food. They get paid by tons and bushels, and the fertilizers they use, NPK, which is the biggest fertilizers that are used by all farmers, only have 3 nutrients in it, NPK, because that gives them the greatest tonnage per acre, and that's how they get paid. Now, a farmer is not dumb. So he gives all his animals, his cows and his chickens and his pigs and turkeys and sheep and so forth, he gives all his animals vitamins and minerals. Now, your doctor doesn't tell you to take vitamins and minerals, so you're getting the food that these farm animals are getting that only had 3 nutrients, NPK, in them. And that's why everybody's sick. And then, of course, they screw it up even worse by frying and using oils. Well, they used oils thousands of years ago, yeah. They had olive trees. They'd pull the olive off the tree and eat it. Or they'd squeeze the olive right then and use the oil right then. They didn't have a factory in which they're squeezing olives at, 100-degree temperature in Brazil and putting these cans and bottles of olive oil in the, let's see here, putting them in the cupboard or the warehouse for a year or two, oxidizing. And so when you eat the olive oil, it's now trans fats, heterocyclamines, and acrylamides, which will give you cancer and cause plaque in your arteries. Cholesterol doesn't cause plaque in your arteries. Cholesterol doesn't cause heart disease. It's oxidized oils. And every hippie and every vegetarian thinks oils is the greatest thing. Well, that's why they don't live to be 100 anymore. There you go.
Okay. Thank you much, and thank you, Don in SoCal for calling 479-1080. Let's see, our next caller is going to be Craig in Campbell. So let me bring Craig up. Craig, you're on with Doc Wallach.
Yeah, hey, Doc. I like you.
Yes, sir.
I like a lot to say, but I like to challenge you a bit and some aspects.
Okay, please. I do not mind challenges. That's how people learn.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I cut way back on gluten, and the wheat I eat is organic, the little bit that I eat. But, I like...
That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter.
But
organic wheat still has gluten in it.
Yeah, I understand that. But let me just say this. Let me ask you first and go on a little bit. Now, you said, I think, 70 years you've been off, you haven't eaten gluten. I wonder how you first came to that conclusion, that discovery. So it's a long time ago. And also,
let me tell you.
Also, wait a second, please. I forgot what I was going to say, but listen, a lot of 100-year-olds, that they haven't been on a gluten-free diet. They've been eating wheat in this country. You got to admit that. A lot of people have lived to 100. Okay, so take on those issues. Okay,
well, I'll answer the last question first. And when you see somebody who's 100 years old, they usually have white hair, which is a symptom of a deficiency of a particular mineral. the odds are they're going to die of a ruptured aneurysm in the brain or the chest, the aorta, or something like that, because the elastic fibers and arteries also requires that nutrient. So I can talk to an audience of people, 1,000 people, and 50 of them have white hair. I know they already have a deficiency of that nutrient. I don't even know their name, never met them. They're 20 rows away from me, okay? That's what Michael Jackson died from. And he had white hair at age 51 when he died. He had white skin. His skin was as white as typing paper because he was deficient in those nutrients because he was a gluten eater. And so these people, they do take a lot of vitamins and minerals. You know, these older people, the ones who lived to be 100, they were taking vitamins and minerals 100 years ago, and they kept doing it because they said, well, I better keep taking my vitamins and minerals. It wasn't perfect. They weren't getting all 90 essential nutrients, but even if they're only getting 30, that's better than none. Okay, so that's why these people live, even though they're eating some gluten, they're still living to be 100. Okay, that's not
okay.
Okay, then you go back to when did I discover this? I discovered this when I was 9 years old. Now you have to appreciate, when I was 9 years old, my birthday when I was 9 years old, it was actually 9 years old and 9 months, because life begins at conception. Life begins when the sperm fertilizes the egg. You're an embryo for 9 months. When you're born, that's your birth date, but that's not how old you are. You're already 9 months old. So when you're 3 months old after you're born, you're a year old. Now,
Agreed, yeah.
The Chinese use that as dating your conception date as opposed to your birth date. There's two different things. And so right now I'm 81 years old, 81 and a half years old because of my conception date, okay?
Yeah.
Now,
try and tell that to Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah. Okay. So when I was 4 years old, I began to have a problem. They didn't have a name for it back then. Today, it's called autism. Okay. It was a very violent type of autism. When I was 4, I was strong because I was working on the farm as a kid, and so I'm pushing people around and knocking them down if I didn't like them or disagreed with them. And in class, if I wouldn't want to wait in line, I'd just push my way in and everything. And I was obnoxious. And it was getting worse and worse and worse. So over a period of 5 years' time, okay, between age 4 and 9, my mom and dad had taken me to 20 doctors. The last one was a gal by the name of, let's see here, it'll come to me in a second. Let me go somewhere else. It'll pop in my head. At any rate, this little grandmotherly old doctor, Mary Jane Skeffington was her name, Mary Jane Skeffington. And she, was a pediatrician and an eye doctor and a psychologist for kids. And she said I had some terrible disease. She was the 20th doctor. And she said I had to be institutionalized because she'd seen many cases like this, and it was not going to end well, and I was going to hurt myself or somebody else if I didn't get put in an institution and tranquilized. And so I asked my mom what that meant, and she said, well, they're going to put you in a hospital. I said, well, how long am I going to be there? And she says, well, you might be there for the rest of your life, because they don't know how to fix this. I said, okay. Well, that night, when everybody else went to sleep, I'm sitting on the end of my bed, and I'm saying, well, that doesn't sound good, being in a hospital for the rest of my life. I'm only 9 years old. And so I said, okay. Now, in the garden, we didn't have electricity at that time, and one of my jobs was to put the wood ashes into the garden and give Grandma a bowl full of wood ashes every morning so she could put it into our oatmeal and that kind of stuff, okay? But then the rest of the wood ashes went out into the garden and gave to the animals, and we gave them vitamins and minerals. I'm thinking to myself, okay, now we're eating everything in the garden that the animals are, but we're not taking the vitamins and minerals that we're giving those animals. I said, what if it's a deficiency of one of those vitamins and minerals? So the next morning, I go out to the barn, and I take all the vitamins and minerals that those animals had, and I put them in my pockets. I literally threw my Wheaties and Cheerios out into the lawn for the chickens to eat, and I just ate the fruit. Okay, I didn't eat anything else. I just ate the fruit, and I took those vitamins and minerals, and I didn't eat anything but fruit and cheese and vitamins and minerals. For 3 days, I was cured. After 5 years of getting worse and worse and worse, going to be institutionalized for the rest of my life. In 3 days, I was cured. Okay? And so I started reading, and I'm reading about things that interfere with absorption. So I knew when I was 9 years old that gluten interfered with absorption, so I stopped eating bread and oatmeal and Cheerios and things like that, and croutons in my salad and pancakes and waffles. I just started eating for breakfast potatoes, white potatoes and sweet potatoes, which we grew in our gardens. So I had plenty of that kind of stuff. Rice was a little bit of a treat because we had to buy the rice. We couldn't grow rice. We didn't have a swamp or anything like that. And so I would eat rice 2-3 days a week. And now I eat rice twice a day. But back then, when I was only 9 years old, I'm eating rice and sweet potatoes and white potatoes and vegetables we grew in our own garden and putting wood ashes in there. And had completely given up gluten when I was 9 years and 9 months old. Okay.
You were incredibly disciplined for 9 years old.
Well, I'm seeing, when I was 9 years old, of course, I'm going to the doctor's offices, these 20 different doctors and all these crazy kids in there. And then I go on the 5th or 6th week and I see that same crazy kid, but now they're coming in a wheelchair, tranquilized, asleep. Their heads hanging back and they're, under the influence of whatever tranquilizer they're on. And I said, well, how come he's like that? He was okay 2 weeks ago. My mom would say, well, they're giving him medication. I said, well, I don't want that. And so, I'd find out what they were doing, and I didn't want to do it. And so you have to appreciate that we didn't have health insurance back in those days. And my grandma was the family physician. Okay, that was, part of the deal back in those days. When you lived out on the farm, you're 100 miles away from the city, you didn't go to see a doctor once a week. You went to see a doctor when you were dead. Or, you had appendicitis or something like that. Grandma was the doctor, and she had her herbs, and she had her wood ashes, and she had her poultices, and she had her bandages. And Grandma was kept busy just dealing with everything from injuries on the farm to aches and pains and osteoporosis and loose teeth and bleeding gums and all that kind of stuff, and skin rashes and high blood pressure and colds and fevers. That's what grandmas did back when I was a kid. They were the pharmacy because they grew their own herbs in the garden as well as vegetables. So they were the pharmacy as well as the physician and the nurse, because when you needed nursing care for weeks or months or years, they would do that too. But that's what grandmas did. Okay? Well, once insurance came along and medical schools came along and doctors came along and nurse practitioners came along, suddenly it all changed, and now grandmas are in nursing homes as patients.
Well, did your grandma, did she go along with you that you shouldn't eat bread, wheat, and stuff like that?
No, she didn't have any problem with that because there were so many people that were told by people who were just good observation. I mean, gluten is not a new thing. People knew that some people couldn't tolerate eating wheat. You had a wheat problem. And so she knew that. And so she said, that's not a problem. And she agreed with me. I said, I'm looking at these people who eat these things and have these problems. I look at people who don't eat these things and they don't have these problems. Because, in the churches, we would have Asian people and they were eating totally differently than we were and having different diseases than we were. So I said, well, what if I ate like an Asian? Would I turn Chinese? Would I turn Japanese? And that kind of stuff. I'm 9 years old. I'm asking those questions.
All right. Hey, listen, Craig and Campbell, thanks for calling the KSCO Erection Special. Here's Rich in Salinas. Rich, you're up next.
Okay, thank you. Hi, Dr. Wallach. It's nice to talk with you today.
How can I help you?
Dr. Wallach come on once Saturday a month to do this. This would be great if you could. Just pick any Saturday out of the month, and if Dr. Wallach can do it in the schedule, that would be fantastic.
Wow, what an idea.
Yes, and my question, I had a bunch of questions, but the first one was on milk. If I have time for the second one on eggs, I'll ask that. But I've been told, I love milk. I can drink a gallon or 2 gallons a day sometimes. It just tastes good for some reason. But on the label, it only, you only have milk listed there. But I understand that they put a lot of other ingredients in there when they produce the milk. And one of them apparently causes inflammation, so that I'm actually hurting myself by drinking milk. Is that the truth, or is there a different understanding of it?
No, that's not the truth. If they put something in milk, they're going to have to put it on the label. Okay, the only thing they put in milk, which they put on the label, is they'll add some vitamin D3 sometimes. Okay, add some vitamin D3. They will take milk fat out of milk and make it skim milk. Okay, they can add all kinds of things to milk to make it cheese. Okay, and that they have to put those ingredients on the label. Okay, now it goes back to Bible times. Let's see, where did people live the longest? It was a land flowing with what?
Milk and honey.
Milk and honey for people who live the longest, even in Bible days. And then when you look at all vertebrates, whether they're a whale or a human being or a horse or an ostrich or a giraffe, and I shouldn't say an ostrich, a giraffe, mammals, let's say mammal vertebrates, what is the universal fuel in newborn babies?
Colostrum.
Breast milk.
Breast milk, right.
Yeah, breast milk. Yeah, colostrum is the first milk, full of antibodies and all kinds of stuff to protect you from viruses.
Yeah.
Okay, milk is the perfect food. Milk is the perfect food. Now, milk got a bad name when they started wanting you to get off of cholesterol. Okay, and cholesterol, of course, is your best friend. It makes up 95% of testosterone, which we were talking about earlier, this morning. And of course, it also, all your hormones in your body needs cholesterol, which milk provides. And it's a good food. We have the equipment to digest it. It has a very efficient protein and fats and things like that. It has vitamins in it, has minerals in it. Okay? And so milk is a very good food. So anybody who tells you to give up milk should be put in prison for life for murder. Okay? Because milk is the perfect food. Now, there are people who have allergies to cow's milk, but then there's llama milk. Okay? And there's camel milk, which is all available, in the supermarkets or in the health food stores for people who are allergic to cow's milk. There's sheep's milk. There's goat's milk. So, just the fact that you're allergic to cow's milk is not reason enough to give up milk or cheese that could be made from other sources of milk.
Now, I have a friend that is allergic to...
Yeah, anyway, that's one of the reasons why people live to be 100 years of age, because they're not only vitamin and mineral takers, but also they're milk and cheese eaters. High-quality proteins, sources of vitamins and minerals, and they're avoiding gluten when they eat eggs and drink milk and eat cheese.
So I'm safe to drink all the milk I want. That's not going to be a problem. I was thinking, I take turmeric every day. I take turmeric every day, and I take half a tablespoon of baking soda to try to keep my pH level right. And so turmeric obviously is a good inflammation fighter.
Stop. You're going to kill yourself with the baking soda. Do not take baking soda. You want your stomach environment to be acid. You do not want baking soda every day. Do not take that.
Every other day? Or not at all?
Not at all.
Not at all, okay.
Give all your baking soda to your hippie friends and your doctors.
How about potassium soda? Similar.
Okay, stop. Have you ever heard of the 90 essential nutrients?
Yes.
You take the 90 essential nutrients. Do you think it has phosphorus in it? Do you think it has potassium in it? Do you think it has calcium in it? Do you think it has copper in it? Do you think it has selenium in it? Do you think it has iron in it? Okay, so you take the 90 essential nutrients, and you don't have to sit there and cherry pick, I'm taking potassium. Well, that's stupid. When you're duplicating, if you're taking the 90, why would you add more potassium when you're already getting potassium?
Well, in my case, I'm an ex-veteran. I'm in a limited amount of money, so I used to take your products all the time. I'm a distributor, and when I first took them, it solved all my problems. It was fantastic. I had eye problems, and right now I have Fuchs disease, which I blame Ben Fuchs for, and he says he didn't do it. But so they want to do surgery on my eyes for the Fuchs disease. But I used to take your products. I just can't afford them under my budget right now, and that's unfortunate.
Okay, well, I want you to stop there. You said you were a distributor. Right now, longevity distributors are growing like crazy. I get people who've been with me for 30 years. They have 500,000 customers. They're high school graduates, okay? They make more money in a month than most doctors make in a year, okay? If you just get 10 customers, you'll have enough money to pay for your longevity products. As a customer and a distributor, you pay the wholesale price. if you get on auto ship, I will pay the shipping, so you don't even have to pay the shipping. Okay, and you can put it in your little business plan that your Youngevity business is going to supply your vitamins and minerals, and so it becomes a tax-deductible item. Okay, and even your products are tax-deductible because your business plan is going to say your Youngevity business is going to provide your supplements. Okay, so I don't know who is your sponsor and who is your coach, but they didn't coach you very well because you don't know enough.
Wait a minute here. Let's not get hung up on this. Let's thank Rich and Salinas and go on to our next caller, which will be Craig in Santa Cruz. Craig, you're on with Doc Wallach. Hello, Craig. Going once, going twice. Tony in Live Oak, you're on with Doc Wallach. I don't know what's wrong. There's two in a row now that we're not having. Tony, are you there?
They must all like gluten.
Oh, okay. Tony? I don't know what's going on here. So I can't figure that one out at all. Yeah, people are just hanging up or so. Well, we're going to, now it's loading up again. I'm going to answer. Hello, who is this?
This is Tony again.
Okay, Tony, I don't know what happened, but you were gone.
I don't either.
But you're on now.
Thank you. Well, I'm an avid reader of the book Epigenetics, and Dr. Wallach's page, the last page of his book, 509. I hope you would let me put this one paragraph of 6 sentences, this is 6 lines, into the program because it's so great. It's called The Pearl, as in Pearl Street. And do I have my permission?
Go ahead, Tony. Go ahead.
Okay. Failure to be obsessive about health, survival, and longevity, and failure to provide for all of the 90 essential nutritional necessities of an optimal, healthy life for ourselves will, over time, result in the disappearance of man. We can and will become extinct if we fail to employ our intellect. We do have access to the knowledge and the materials to be a successful species. However, if we choose poorly, the end will surely come for us as it has for other careless and uncommitted species. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you. And Doc, you have a lot of disciples in KSCO country, Doc.
Yeah, that was true then and still true now, that we have to be responsible for ourselves and our family and our associates and our friends and our neighbors. As a country, we're in trouble. Anytime you have a disease, that's killing 200,000 people, almost 250,000 people, it's insane. That's 10 times more than used to be killed, during the plagues, 1,000 years ago or 2,000 years ago, and we have this problem. We have the ability to prevent these. We have the ability to eliminate these things. But we have to take responsibility. You can't get in line and stay 6 foot apart and line up at a doctor's office because they're just going to give you something to reduce your fever, which you can do yourself. It's very, very simple. And so I urge you, and of course, with Youngevity, we're not saying don't wear your mask. We're not saying don't socially distance. We do have skin sanitizers in big bottles, medium-sized bottles, and little 1-ounce things you can put in your purse, in your briefcase. We have our colloidal silver, which has been the antibiotic of cultures over the ages for thousands of years. You can put it on your shelf. It'll be good 5,000 years later. It never deteriorates. It kills everything, our colloidal silver. And then we have an oral product, which we call Killer Biotic. You could take 2 or 3 doses of that a day, take your 90 essential nutrients, make your white blood cells available, and, kill the virus. And participate. Don't just lay there waiting for the vaccine to come along. You have to do your part, and we will survive. If you don't do your part, as was read, you will not survive.
Okay, let's see. There's about 8 minutes left in the Saturday Erection Special, which has evolved into a Saturday General Health Special with Doc Wallach here. Let's take the next call. Mary in Salinas, California. Mary, you're on.
Hi, Dr. Wallach. I just want to go back to what Rich was saying about milk. Is it okay, in your opinion, since I don't like milk, to drink organic soy milk?
Okay, it's not the same thing. Okay. And, of course, organic soy milk might have oil in it, which is very dangerous. Okay. And so just because it has the word milk attached to it doesn't mean it has the same value as milk. If you don't like cow's milk, try goat's milk, try sheep's milk, try llama milk, try camel milk. Do you eat cheese at all?
Do I eat what?
Cheese.
Cheese, you know.
Yeah, yeah, I'm one of those crazy vegetarians, but I eat cheese and eggs.
Okay, good. Then you don't have to worry about it because cheese is milk.
I just don't. Okay. I just don't like cow's milk to drink. It just makes me gag, and I don't like meat. So I just don't like eating that stuff. So I eat a ton of organic vegetables and eat rice. I'm off of gluten, and I eat a lot of cheese. And I just I have no problem at all.
You did say you
and
eat eggs, right?
Eggs. Yeah. I eat eggs. I eat like 4 eggs, and I eat 3 egg whites and 1 egg yolk. And my cholesterol is always perfect and everything. But I'm like Rich. I drink soy milk like it's water. You know, I mean, I love to drink soy milk.
You're in trouble. You're in trouble.
Okay. I can stop, but yeah.
Yeah, you should stop. You can take, 1 whiskey shot glass full of soy milk once a week.
Okay.
Why is she in trouble, Doc?
Because of the oil in the soy milk, oxidizes and turns into trans fats, heterocyclamines that will cause her arteries to get clogged, and they'll blame it on that 1 egg yolk she's eating a day, okay? No, it's that soy milk she's drinking, like water, as she said. So that means she's drinking 4, 5, 6, 8, 10 glasses of soy milk a day, okay? It's going to kill her.
Okay.
Wow. Sounds like you respect what Doc Wallach thinks about this, Mary.
Yeah, I mean, I've been reading about soy milk. I just happen to love it. I don't drink that much of it. I'm talking about putting it in my tea and that kind of thing, I drink coffee or something like that, and that's what I would put in instead of milk. That's what I mean. So,
we'll put.
So if you're talking about oils and stuff. I use raw olive oil on my vegetables and everything, and
Oh no!
I mean, I use olive oil all the time.
Well,
Pardon me?
Dead.
What did you say, Doc?
Bam! You're dead.
Yeah. So anyhow.
No oils.
Yeah, Doc Wallach says no oils of any kind. Okay, if you like
even not just uncooked oils.
If you have any oil left, box it up with beautiful ribbons and give it to your doctor with love, please.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
And how do I get your 90 essential nutrients?
You must. Are you tuning into to KSCO for the very first time, Mary?
No, but I forgot how to do that. Yeah.
Okay. Well. Yeah. Call Dave Michaels here at KSCO. Okay, that's the quickest way to do it. Okay, thank you. Now here's bye. Here's Craig in I don't know where, but Craig, you're on.
Hi, Michael. Thank you very much. Hey, first, I don't know if Pharmacist Ben is still around, but the 3 of you.
He's around, but not here with us.
Well, you 3 are 3 of my heroes.
He hasn't passed yet.
Oh, well. I was hoping he's still listening. Just you guys, the 3 of you are some of my heroes because of the work you do.
Oh, thank you.
Stuff, and it's much appreciated. I did want to ask you, go back to, this gal was just talking about oils. I've always read, or many times, you need good fats, right? So if I tend to have...
Yeah.
So...
Essential fatty acids are good fats.
Okay, so then even the low processed, low heated oils, extra virgin olive oil, like was just mentioned.
Well, they oxidize as soon as they're squeezed out of the olive.
I see. What about coconut oil?
Bam! You're dead.
Okay. So other essential fatty acids, so you just got to get it from the food then, you're saying, like fish or avocado or that type of thing?
Like liver, avocados, okay. Yeah, that's where you want to get it, by eating foods that have those things naturally in them. And, for instance, you don't want to have an avocado that's been sitting in your cupboard for 2 months and starting to get all wrinkled and everything, okay, and you're cutting some of the bad parts off, because even the oils inside that avocado have oxidized, okay, turn into trans fats, heterocyclamines, and phylamides, and become bad things. You know, we live on 5 acres. We have, gosh, I don't know how many trees. You know, we grow pomegranates and lemons and limes and all kinds of things. And we take them off the tree and we eat them.
Right.
Okay, we take them off the trees, we juice them, and we'll put them in the refrigerator and have them tomorrow. But you can't juice them and put them in the freezer for a year, or juice them and can them like we used to do in the old days. You know, we'd can beans and things like that, and tomatoes and cauliflower, and because we didn't even have electricity. We didn't even have an icebox when I was a kid. So we would do, the old classic canning stuff. And but as soon as you would open that, boy, you better eat it right away, because, a week on the counter opened, everything in there would oxidize, and then you'd be in trouble. And so oxidation is very bad. It's kind of like rust on iron, and you don't want that going on in your arteries.
Right.
Okay.
right.
I don't know whether we have
Thank you very much.
time. We probably don't have time, so it's probably not right for me to put Diane and Aptos on. But real quick, gallstone question. Real quick, Diane, real quick.
Is there a way to dissolve gallstones?
To dissolve?
Yes, we actually have.
Yeah.
We actually have a product called our gallbladder in a bottle. It's called our Ultimate Enzymes. It has bile salts in it, okay? And so I want you to take 1 or 2 of those per 100 pounds of body weight, say 5 to 10 minutes before each meal with a couple ounces of water. And the bile salts that come in the Ultimate Enzymes, which we call the gallbladder in a bottle, will dissolve gallstones.
Ultimate Enzymes. Doc, it's always great to have you on. We got to do it more often in this longer format. Thanks very much. We'll see you next time.
That's all, folks.
You are listening to KSCO, Santa Cruz, Salinas, Monterey, San Jose. And Josh Stevens, I think we have something to promo real quick here coming up in a parking lot here at KSCO.
Stuff the Boot event Saturday from 1 to 5 here at your favorite rate here